Hey friends, thanks for joining us on Awakening and Relating.
I'm Kayla.
I'm Brad.
Join us as we unpack deep awakenings, navigate relationship consciously, and further awaken through the body with intimacy.
Here we go. Yeah, today we're talking about finding the one.
We got a new setup.
We do got a new setup. Yeah, we got some new chairs, comfy chairs. Yeah, a little bit of a new backdrop. I mean, same backdrop.
Yeah,
Fresh paint.
just a little bit of updates.
Yeah, some updates. So exciting.
All right, so finding the one. I'm so excited to talk about this topic. Because,
yeah, you've been wanting to talk about this for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been coming up a lot in my clients, and especially just the idea of it and seeing some of the things that other people are talking about.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to hit on this one.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It's kind of part of the chase, kind of part of the story. And then at some point you'll recognize what the one really is.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about how to find the one.
The one, capital T.
The one.
Yeah.
Not the one that you think you're looking for.
Right, right.
But the one that you really is inside.
Yeah.
Pulling at you.
Well, that's the trick to this is most people are still trapped in duality, fully. If you're there and you're looking for the one is going to be somebody that's just somewhat compatible with you based on your likes and dislikes. That's the one. It will always fall short, unfortunately, because no matter who that person is, everything that comes across is going to be conditioned, just like everything that you provide is going to be conditioned. So when you and I talk about finding the one, I've noticed this in our relationship as well, is the one it's a recognition of the one in the other, but it's the recognition of yourself, right? Of the underlying awareness of the oneness that is in another being.
Yes.
And so many people will put this whole thing together in such a way that it's like, oh, if you work in this direction, if you use this level of spirituality, if you do this, if you do that, if you're successful, you'll find the one. Just put yourself out there. You'll find the one. But it's not that person that fulfills that sensation of the one.
Mm-hmm. It also goes into so commonly today, people are focused on finding their person.
Yeah.
Finding their person, this one that they spend their whole life looking for, or so much of the time looking for, not realizing what it is that they're actually been wanting.
Right, what they're actually searching for.
Right, yeah. And then in that process, they are often bypassing their own true love within, bypassing their growth, their progress, their intimacy with themselves, their journey to the depths of themselves, just solely to follow this fantasy.
Well, and it is a fantasy. You see this in media constantly, especially in children's media. Like princesses get saved, right, by some guy on a white horse in shining armor. Like you have to wait until the one shows up. You have to be patient, and then the perfect person is going to show up. And that's a fallacy of the mind. What we're talking about is the one. And when you find that in yourself, you begin to recognize it in others, and then you can fall deeply in love with all beings. You don't have to conditionally love the one that you think maps to your likes and dislikes.
Yeah, it's like I wrote something.
I want to jump real quick back to the bypassing part. You're right, it is bypassing, but it's not intentional, right? So there's a difference between bypass. You're just missing it, right? You're just missing it because you believe, because of what you've been taught, because of your conditioning, because of the way society tells us what we're looking for. Because of all of that, you're just missing it. You don't recognize that you must fully accept and love yourself unconditionally. And through that, you will recognize that same underlying oneness and unconditional love being expressed through another. And that therein is where you find the one, but it's not bypassing in a way, because we talk about spiritual bypassing sometimes. it's not bypassing in a way that's detrimental on your path. It's not like you're doing it intentionally. It's just based on your conditioning, right? So we get lost in that.
Mm-hmm. And being in that space is really difficult too, because you don't know the other side of it. And then you get so lost and consumed, and you're like, I don't really like to say the word blocked really, but you are blocking yourself. Your vision is clouded. Your perspective is only so centered on pinpoint of this, the one, that you can't see anything outside of it.
And that one is a list of concepts. That's the challenge, right? The one that you're looking for is a list of concepts. Like the one for me needs to be about this tall, needs to be this color, this religious background, be this status in society, right? Be willing to have children or not have children, right? Whatever it is, it's a list of concepts, right? And they're all creations of the mind. And so you're missing it. You're missing it completely. I think something that you and I recognized early on is like, we've always had this connection, this really deep connection, almost, I don't want to say since we met, but after we finally got to know each other, right? Yeah. We've had this really deep connected state. And it took a couple of years before we recognized, again, I've said this before, like we were sitting on your couch and I was like, are you what, like in a very confused, like look on my, like question mark above my head, like, are you what I've been looking for? And the thing is, as you awaken more deeply, you recognize that same one vibe in everyone. It's just some people are asleep. Some people don't recognize that they are it, you know? And once you open more deeply and more fully to your beingness and your present state of awareness in this moment now, without dragging a past, without having your list of concepts for who this person's going to be, you start to fall in love not only with yourself, but all the beings around you. And then you can express more deeply. And that for you and I was the oddity in it is we started to notice it around the same time. You know, me's a little quicker than you, but yeah, we started to recognize it around the same time. Like, hey, if I continue to lean into this thing, right, and I continue to let go of what my concept of who I need would look like.
Right. Because that was one of the major things that I had to get over.
Yeah, that for you was a big deal.
Like I've never really been like a materialistic or like my partner has to have this or that. But I was single for so long and I had raised like so many standards and I knew exactly what I wanted. And I think kind of like you witnessed me, like
for sure.
I went through this weird transformation around the same time where I like changed my style, bought all these new clothes. I was turning into like bougie Kayla, like the car I was driving. I had to fit the role of the car that I was driving. Right.
You built this role now, and I'll project from this space who I think I am. Yeah.
Like I can't be driving like a Maybach wearing Florida tank tops and like flip flops.
Right.
Like
I can't get out of the car like this.
Yeah. So I like recreated who I was to fit that person that was driving the car. And then the other aspects of my life, like, and,
I remember you got a bunch of clothes from Bali. You're like, I got this load of clothes coming in from Bali.
Yeah. So in that, like, I was coming a little bougie. Yeah. And then my standards or what I was looking for in men started to kind of become a little more bougie. Like, oh, you need to have this job. You need to have this kind of car. Yeah. This kind of status. This look too. And which I've never really cared about my whole life. It was just that I was feeding into this car situation. And then I remember you said something to me too. And you're like, I think you were kind of like, what are you doing?
Like, what are you looking, what do you think you're going to find out there? But it's worth the search. It's not that the search, it's worth it because that's where you learn, right? That's where you learn. You're like, you start to put yourself out there and like, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to go for this type of person, right? But it's still your list of concepts, right? And will they check these boxes? And I know you played around with like online dating and I did too. Like online dating for me was a nightmare because I tried to be extremely honest. Like, hey, I've gone through some awakening process. I used to be this corporate schlep. Like I thought I did a good job writing my profile, you know? and this is where I'm at in life, and this is what I'm looking for. And inevitably, if I had a conversation, even past a few chats or texts, they'd be like, what kind of car do you drive? What part of town do you live in? Right? It's this extraction-based mentality that you run into, with average everyday 3D people. And it's not their fault. They don't know, and in your case, you were still in that space of like, I don't know, like I've got this concept and I haven't tried this concept before. So I'm in a state of unknowing. So let me try this new concept because maybe that's where the juice is. Maybe that's where I'll find the thing I'm looking for. Yeah, I remember you going through this.
And I didn't even it didn't last long because it was obvious. Like, I have always been a person that craves depth, intellectual depth, emotional depth. And I was like, duh, like I'm not going to, 90% of those people that fit that category that I was looking for aren't going to have the depth.
Right. Because there are most people like that. And I was that person too, not to cut you off, but you're married to your role, your identity, right? You're so married to it that like, if I'm going to be hyper successful in the world, for the most part, it means I'm working for someone and maybe working for myself, but usually working for somebody, getting paid a couple of $200,000-$300,000 a year. But I have to be this role, right? For me, it was salesperson. So I wake up in the morning and I put on my role, just like I put on my suit, right? And I carry myself a certain way. And I'm so married to that there's only so much I've got left to give, right? Because I'm constantly efforting towards playing this role. And so I'm bound by that role. The Tao Te Ching says, he who defines himself can never know himself. And that's what you're getting into when you're moving into relationship like that, right? So if you can move into relationship with somebody who is not defining themselves, then you can find the one. But all you're doing then is recognizing yourself in another.
But it's important before you even get into relationship you can practice this in relationship, but it's really, really important to have the solid foundation of love with yourself, which leads into this.
Oh God, yes.
So at one point, like eventually that lasted like a month or two. And then I was like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to go back to being me. You were doing you, obviously. And then we had gotten closer, but through that, because of how deep I was going with myself and my experiences and however long I went doing all of my things and we kind of just like both gave up that we were going to find this person.
Right. The checklist fell away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to find
Again, you told me, you said it out loud. I remember that. I think this was in our last episode too, but you literally said, like face to face, you were just like, am I going to be alone forever? I was like, I don't think so. Like you're free too, if you want, but it's that letting go. Like this is the key to the whole awakening process. It's the letting go. The more you let go of who you think you are, the more you let go of your role, the more you start to recognize that something is here and it is aware that there seems to be a person at play. I had a conversation with a client this morning and he just wanted to talk about non-duality. And, I try to get centered and grounded and as neutral as I can and do my best to speak from that space. But the thing is, everybody's looking for awareness. They're looking for their present state of awareness. If you're on this path, you're looking for awareness. But awareness isn't something that you can find. You're always aware. It's just, are you lost in the stories that are at play on top of awareness? Are you aware that stories are at play? And that's what you got kind of lost in a little bit there. And myself too. Like I had a checklist of who I was going to be with after my awakening. I was like, oh, I need somebody that's like hyper awake, that leans into practices, that wants to awaken with me, that I had a list of conditions. And when you and I met, it was really strange. I always thought you were beautiful, and I was like, well, she's really intriguing. You had done a lot of the things that I wanted to do, and I just wanted to get to know you more. But I pretty quickly recognized, I was like, well, per my checklist, she doesn't hit all the boxes, right? And certainly for you, I didn't Check.
No.
None of the boxes on your checklist.
Yeah, but it's interesting now, though, because like you didn't check the boxes at the beginning.
Right.
But as we've grown into our relationship, everything that I wanted in a man is like not like you're becoming it, but it's like revealing.
You see the expression of it without the checkbox, right? You see the expression of the underlying thing that you so desperately seek. Yeah, I see it too. Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's wild. It's but it's all about letting go. Letting go into now. Like let go of your story, let go of your checklist, let go of your conditioning. And the one will make itself, no, but you're not finding it in another. It's the recognition of what you are in another form. Mm-hmm. You're not going to find it. You're not finding it in another persona. Your persona is not going to find the one in another persona. That is all conditioned, and it will. I'm not going to say it's going to fail, because what's failure anyway? Like, who defines that? But the depth of your relationship will be relegated to storyland, what you tell yourself and what your partner tells themselves, and then how those things interlace in relationship. And what you and I are attempting to do through our relationship is support each other's growth, right? While constantly trying to let go of the story of me. And it's interesting because yours comes a totally different way. Like mine is very mental, right? Mine's a mental game of, aha, I caught you thought processes. Now step back, and watch the thought processes run without becoming them. And you'll get wrapped up in them for a little while and be like, I just need to dance this shit out, and then you'll get lost in the dance, And so it's very, very interesting because it comes through all forms differently. There's no right or wrong way to awaken, but finding the one is an interesting search, because it's not until you let go of the search itself and the check boxes and conditions of the search that you will be able to see what's sitting right in front of you.
Right. And see the one in yourself first.
You have to
find the one in yourself first.
Absolutely.
Is like first step.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. First step, going back to you.
Yeah.
For anything. But that's my favorite thing. It's like, it's so, so, so important to become secure and whole and really establish this love within yourself first. Because not only will your relationship dynamics change, because the level that you are going with yourself in depth is the level that you will go with your partner. Your partner will meet you there. But at the same time, you want to, or it actually just happens that you magnetize pretty much the same as like the level that you are. So if you want this deep love that feels like the one that's the true one, you have to be there with yourself first.
You have to. And you have to experience yourself authentically without trying to change it. So whatever the hell you are, whatever your manifestation shows up as, whatever emotions and thoughts go through your head, like, can you let that be what it is without judging it and saying, no, I should be this type of person, right? And part of the trap is that we see something that we want oftentimes, and then we start to augment our role or our character to fit what we believe that other thing would want. And now we're really lost in the game. Now we're really lost in it. Like, I believe this person wants this type of person, so I'll act in such a way. And that's where you get into those dating scenarios that we've all experienced, where you meet someone and then 6 months later, it's not quite the same person you met, but neither are you, So very, very interesting. But yeah, this is all about finding the one in yourself, finding that space of quiet, expansive, free oneness.
Yeah,
that exists inside of you and always has. And so even when we say finding it, it's a bit of a curious way to point it out, because there's no way you can be without it. Like, awareness has been with you since the day you were born.
Yeah, and it can't be finding because we're not searching, we're just being and noticing.
Right. You're just noticing, right? So you're right. It's not a search. It feels like it, though, because the ego structure, the way it is, I don't want to say designed, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but we'll use that word. The way it's structured is that it feels like that the next step is going to be it. It always does, the next thing, right? This amount of effort. There's a a story about a gentleman that shows up at an ashram, and he says, how long will it take before I'm enlightened? And the sage says, 10 years. And he says, well, I'm kind of a go-getter. What if I work twice as hard as all your other students? How long will it take for me to be enlightened?
20 years.
20 years. And
I guess.
Then I'll work harder than any of your students ever. How long will it take? 30 years, right? And so you see the game we're playing here is it's a relaxing into this moment and experiencing it free from the story, authentically, deeply, and you'll set yourself free. But the ego structure thinks that it has to do. Right. So if you ever find yourself in a space where it feels like you're doing, a bit of a red flag, you know, the thing that thinks it's doing is the thing that you should be watching. Right. Don't get caught up in the game of the doing. Just watch the doer at play. Right. And then again, you start to sink back into deeper states of awareness, start to recognize yourself as the one thing that is, you know, this deep mystical kind of sense of, oh shit, I'm eternal. And once you experience that, then you can see the one in all other beings. Mm-hmm.
So I was talking about this too the other day. It's like, I was kind of explaining this with someone, and we were kind of talking about like what the one is. And I was trying to explain it, but it's going back to that is like the awareness is exactly awareness. Like we are consciousness, awareness, and consciousness, everything, everywhere, all at once, and itself is what we are. So that is what is meaning by like we are inhabiting this body that is attached with emotions and feelings and ego. But I believe that like we're just inhabiting because we are the observer.
Right. This is just a vessel.
Right. And so we're just awareness in this avatar character. Here's where I run into some things sometimes. I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing. I've expanded outside of my body so many times. What's the thing that keeps me in here? Like, is it the game? Is it the game of the ego structure itself? Are you actually in there though?
Right. Or is it in like, am I in it or is it in me? I would say what my experience tells me is that I'm in spirit more than spirit is imbued within me, right? It's not like there's a little flame inside of me that's like, yay, I'm spirit.
Right, but how are you defining that you're confined to the body? Because what are you noticing? You're only seeing through the eyes of the entire body.
Right, and so it feels like because again, if you close your eyes, like you can feel where your feet are, you can feel where your hands are, right? But it feels like that you're inside of that. But you can play games with consciousness to where you can move outside of it. You can play games with like vision, for example. Like if I'm looking at a tree, where is the tree being known, right? Is the tree actually out there, or is it in here, right? Like where's the knower of the tree? And then you can also move your consciousness through your line of sight. Like you can be closer here, or I can put my consciousness on the tree. So then again, where is the tree known? So you can play games like that. But through my experience, it tells me that consciousness is not relegated to this form.
No. I've had ayahuasca ceremonies where that was complete. The ceremony is that, oh, it's not confined.
It's not
at all. It's everything.
It's right. Everywhere. Right. But it feels like you're in there. Just like it feels like I'm in here.
Yeah. But is that just a play because we have this body and are we only associating that we have a boundary and a surface because we can physically see it?
Yes. That's essentially what's going on, because it feels like there's this, and then there's an outside world to this. Right? But we don't exist independently of the outside world ever. So we're not separate from it. But because we can get up and walk around and we're not like trees rooted to the ground, we feel separate. But we're not separate. So it's a game. For a long time, it'll be a game as you seek. I shouldn't say for a long time, because that's putting it on them, isn't it?
However long you choose to.
Right. However long you choose before you just let go. And that's the thing. When people are waking up, Eckhart Tolle, Ram Dass, like all these sages, Ramana Maharshi, they all point out like, you can just do it now. Like there's no reason to wait. If you wait 10 years and you wake up in 10 years, when that moment comes, it will be now.
Right.
And it's kind of tricky in a sense, because we do have to expel some effort at first to get this whole thing kind of going, unless you're one of the fortunate ones and some kind of freak accident or something occurred and you're like, there it is. And you got to peek behind the curtain of reality. Mm-hmm. But then again, seeker energy is going to persist at that point, and you're going to seek until you're done seeking, and then you'll start being, But in that state of being, and mine waxes and wanes. I don't want anybody to think out there like there's something perfect. It's not. It waxes and wanes. Brad gets lost in the story, believes himself to be Brad, and then there's a moment of letting go, and it's like, there's freedom. There's that familiarity. There's home. There's experiencing. I can do it right now. Like I can experience myself as, eternal, but somehow showing up in this little finite being. Mm-hmm. But then again, it'll slip and I'll get lost in storyland and I'll feel like a Brad that has to do a thing to get something, and so it waxes and wanes. But once you've experienced it once, then you're fully on the path at that point. Like there's no getting off. But so many of us are still seeking for that experience, which is odd because the experience of not it is it having the experience, right? But when we're talking about finding the one, you must certainly first find it in yourself before you truly find it in another. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's conditioned.
Yeah, and then externally, like once you get to that space, it's nothing else. The people that aren't progressing to that point, you notice, and you just, it's almost like a turn off.
Almost.
In a way, like you recognize immediately that this person cannot match your depth, cannot.
Right, and that ability to resonate and connect deeply. Yeah. You feel the disconnect. Mm-hmm. Right.
So then it's so much easier to just moving on, and then it's also really, really important to like not. So we have this idea of the one, and then to bring it back a little bit more into like regular relationship aspects, it's important to not just because you want to be with this one that you think is the one, it's important to not be with just anybody to fill that gap and that hole. And this is also part of the finding the one within yourself, kind of eliminates that, because you really are just so focused on yourself that you're not taking in by these distractions that I say.
Yeah, the search outside of you is not going to be fruitful. It's just not. Mm-hmm. Like you're not. This is what happened to us. Like this is what like we literally gave up the search. Like we both gave it up. Like I gave up my checklist. Like you gave up your checklist, and we were just hanging out, being friends, doing what we do, and it was like, what's happening? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's the giving up of the checklist, the conditions, the requirements,
and letting go of what you think
you need
is, and it will show up.
It does. It absolutely does.
There is not the one.
There is not the one.
There is not the one.
Let's say it. There's not.
You will never find the one.
You're never going to find the one.
You'll never find the one.
You're not getting the one.
So stop seeking externally for it.
Stop seeking externally. It's not a subject-object relationship. You're not the subject seeking for the one that's an object that will fulfill you. And most of us are seeking for the one in the form of another human. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, here's the trick. Once you recognize that the one is you, most people will take that external object and just put it inside. So the game is still afoot, right? You're still searching for the one, but the one is having the experience of a searcher searching for the one. See the conundrum? Mm-hmm. Right? So it's still a game for a while, but when you just hang it up, when you're like, I'm done playing the game, I'm just experiencing what is now without labeling it, without putting a bunch of definitions on what's here now, just noticing the way my skin feels, noticing how it feels to sit in this chair, noticing the breath go in and out. Just noticing. Thoughts go through the head, emotions through the chest. Just noticing. And sit in that state as long as you can. And when you get around people, do the same thing. interact when interaction's necessary. You do a really good job of this because I tend to fill the space sometimes. But
okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll break.
No. Just laughing what you said. Yeah.
I feel it. Yeah, I tend to.
I know you do.
This thing has a lot to say, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathe.
Got it. Finding the one is not something that you're going to find outside of you. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, if you've made it subject-object and you put the object inside of you, that's also going to be a challenge. But letting go into the present moment and recognizing yourself as awareness itself will reveal to you that all things that you're looking at are the one, and you, in fact, are the one.
Yes.
And so that there's no longer a seeker looking to find. It's already here. It always has been, and you've always been it.
You can keep suffering, looking for something that you're never going to find, or you can just let go and experience it.
Yeah, fully. Unimpeded by judgments and expectations.
And it's the most beautiful thing ever.
It's juicy. Ooh, it's juicy. Yeah. Yeah, it's juicy. I want it for everybody. I want everybody to want it. Not everybody wants it, though. And those who do want it, they'll seek until they're done seeking. Mm-hmm. And then bang, it's been here all along. And that's, for most people, when you experience the cosmic joke and you just laugh yourself silly, because this whole time, all the search, all the effort, all the doing, all the looking under this rock and under that rock, and all these deep, dark holes and weird places.
Yeah, you don't have to do it anymore.
You don't have to.
Just stop.
Stop doing.
Today's the day.
Today, right now
Today's
is it.
the day.
Today's the day. Stop the search. Like, you're already it. You always have been, and you're already doing it. But in that statement, you'll notice that it leaves the door open for the freedom to feel wrapped up in the game. Like, you're free to feel unfree. You're free to feel trapped. Or you're free to experience yourself as just that, the freedom that is. And it's always, and you're already doing it. It's beautiful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Awakening and Relating.
Please like, share, and subscribe, and drop your comments below.
We'll see you soon.